We're now with the Sheriff's Department, and Darren, if you could introduce yourself and your colleagues and then make whatever budget presentation you'd like to make.
All right, yeah, thank you. We have John Ford, our Chief Deputy, is here with us. Carla West, our Director of Communications, is back here behind me hiding, I think. And Tony Wilkes, our Chief of Corrections. John Taylor, our Chief Warrant Officer. And Pete Lutz, our Director of Finance. And John Hudson, who is our Chief of Administration. It's great to be here on a snowy day. Yeah. I think it's my first time to ever be here on a snowy.
So we commented this is probably the first budget hearings that were done in the snow.
In the snow, all right. Yeah, the Davidson County Sheriff's Office, I think we've had another outstanding year. And we continue to be what I believe to be one of the more efficient agencies in Metro. We work very hard at that, and just wanted to kind of go over a few things that over the last several years that we've kind of assumed and some responsibilities that we're now in charge of. The last several years we've taken over the pretrial release program, DUI school, hospital security, and courthouse security. All of those programs were at the time in the red when we took them over, and I'm very pleased to report that is no longer the case. Each one of those is now in the black in our budget. We also have taken over from the police department functions such as supervising arrestees at the hospital. We serve criminal warrants for them of all the people who are incarcerated in our system, and we also serve we perform DNA swabs on all violent offenders for the police department. We recently, a year and a half or so ago, we put in the field what was our design of a mobile booking unit. This is an idea that I think is the first in the country as far as I know, where we were trying to design a booking room and move it into the field to reduce the downtime and increase the police officers' response time in our community. This unit has now been in the field for over a year. We've completed our first year of data. We have booked over 2,000 people in that mobile unit on an average of 23 minutes per processed arrestee. You've been around here a long time and you know this, but I can remember times where it took the entire shift of a police officer to be tied up in the booking room. We used to measure that. When we started this idea, it was about a 3-hour downtime in the booking room downtown. We're now doing that in a 23 minutes time frame out in the field. If you take our year's worth of work, that has saved the police department some 1,200 hours of man time or downtime for the officers. We think this is a fantastic use of resources for the city, and we think it's an improvement for public safety as the officer is much quicker getting back to his or her zone in our neighborhood. I've had tremendous feedback both from the community as a presence in the community, but also the police officers who use this. I get emails almost weekly. I think we've garnered a very good reputation with that tool of helping the police department. I also want to thank you and for funding our second vehicle. It's out there being designed. We think it will be in the field within the next year or so. It'll allow us to put another one very similarly out in the police department and other sides of town, so we'll continue to see that improvement as well. Another thing that we did 5 years ago is we started a program called STEP. We created this. It stands for Starting to Enjoy Your Pension. We allow our employees who are pension eligible to take their pension and in return working for us in a part-time capacity. We're sitting here today and that program saves us over $1 million a year in the Sheriff's Office alone. We clearly could not be here had we not created the program some 5 years ago. It is an overwhelming success internally. We have over 35 employees who are presently doing that in our agency. We maintain one of the lowest turnover rates in the country. We have about 11% turnover rate of our employees. The national average is about 24%, and the state average far exceeds that. And so very proud of that as another effort we do to manage our money, our budget. The turnover of employees is an expensive way for us to deal with that, so we're very proud of that as well. We've been doing all these things and programs over the years, but also managing, as you know, the jails on a day-to-day basis. We remain the only agency in this country that is fully accredited by the American Correctional Association. We received the Crystal Legal Award, which is the first of its kind in this country, recognizing county systems that have every branch of its agency accredited. As you also know, that over the last several years, we have experienced a decline in our population. We've measured and monitored this on a daily basis, as you know. And there's several reasons for that decline. We believe our 287G program was and is a part of that decline. We also, for the last 6 years, have been a part of a program called Transition from Jail to Community, which is an initiative to reduce recidivism. We're very proud, and we're working, and hopefully a little later this year we'll have some results of that program. And also there's some national trends that also indicate some decline in population. But over the last 5 years, as our ADP has reduced, so too has our budget. We have experienced about a $3.5 million reduction in our budget over those 5 years. Some 80 positions of our agency have been taken away. But we are now experiencing an increase in our ADP. We have seen that turn now. The ADP for the year 2011 and 12 was 2,199 inmates a day, right at 2,200 inmates a day. And this year that we're in, we're on track and projected by the Criminal Justice Planning Unit to be at 2,315, an increase of 116 inmates per day. And this will have a major impact on our ability to manage our budget as we have it today. In our budget that we have presented to you, we're asking for a modification to address our staffing needs and concerns. Although I feel comfortable with the numbers that we presented to you, I would like to propose, as we sit here today, to have an independent consultant review our staffing pattern and present that back to you in a way that will allow you to review that and make a decision before you present your budget in May. I have looked into this. It can be accomplished in that time frame. We can have an independent expert on staffing review our present situation, our ADP, and the projections, and hopefully present back to you a number that you're comfortable with as to what the needs of the Sheriff's Office would be.
That's a great idea.
I tell you, I'm nervous about the timing, but we've checked. I'd like to get you a number before you release your budget. I believe we can get that accomplished. My hope would be that if the number comes in lower than what we have suggested to you in our preliminary budget, this one, that you reduce that to whatever number that they say we need. We'll live with that number if it's below what we've asked for. We believe that it'll be somewhere close to that number. If it's higher than that number, maybe the budget that we've submitted is good enough. We'll make that work. We just feel passionate about the growth of what's going on, but also I think it's a good thing to do, bring an outside set of eyes to look at it, present that to you, and hopefully you can.
I think that's an excellent idea and a great approach, and I appreciate your thinking of doing that. And so, yeah, go forward and do that. And if anything we can do to help the process move forward rapidly, let us know. But I'm confident you got it under control.
Okay. Well, we'll get that back quickly. One of the things I'm hoping to do is to leave here today, get back and start working on that so we can get it. I know you have a timetable in May. The council and the city, I hope, would better support whatever that number is coming back out of your office. And so we'll get to work on that right away. I'm anxious to do that. And again, as you well know, the Criminal Justice Planning Unit, I think, does a really good job of monitoring data and numbers we didn't have years ago. But we can now use those for things such as this. Our needs are going to be, somewhere driven by the population, and I think that shows that in our number. Our average daily population is up about 5.3% according to the Criminal Justice Planning Unit, and that's what I'm using here. These are not our own inmate numbers. These are actually coming from their unit. So very happy about that, and again, we'll get to work right away. May need some help in the purchasing area, just making sure we can get the contract, and we'll do that out of our existing budget. Obviously, we see the value in doing that, but if we can get some help in getting that process through, to make sure.
Be happy to help, I'm sure.
That'll be. We've handled our fluctuations, I think, over the years, and I just want you to know this. When we have fewer inmates or have had fewer inmates, what we do is we move all the inmates into the areas and make them a more responsible way of managing that population. We have units completely closed today. We do not let an officer monitor fewer inmates. We move the fewer inmates where other inmates are, so we don't have to staff those units. And so as we're starting to grow with 116 more per day, we're actually having open units up, and that's where the staffing issues will become apparent as we go, I think. And really, that's really what I wanted to present. We've worked very hard, I think, over the last several years at trying to manage from within and what we have. We've done some creative things, including the STEP program that, again, I think is a fantastic way for us to manage our employees. It's a hit for them, and it's a really win-win for us budgetarily. And again, over $1 million saved with just that one program. So very happy to be here, very proud of the men and women in the Sheriff's Office. They work very hard every day, and we'll take any questions.
Good. Well, first let me thank you and your staff for the great work you do. You guys have, I think I would agree with you that you have one of the more proactive approaches to management, and I think the mobile unit, the retirees or the pension eligible folks that you've been employing part-time, it's a good example of sort of thinking outside the box, and I commend you for that. What tell me a little bit about the pension eligible program. What type of work do they do? Yeah,
we designed this just to kind of give you just a real quick how we got there, just so you know. When I was running for sheriff, I was really surprised when I went around 12 years ago, and you'd go into the retirees' breakfasts and dinners and so forth of Metro, and you just saw very few sheriff's office people. And so right after that, we had a student from Trevecca working because he was an intern, and we asked him to kind of look into retirement and why people do and don't take it, both in the nation and in this business, and then of course in the sheriff's office. And come to find out, there was one major reason that people do not accept a pension when they're eligible to take it in this line of work. It's number one, they lose their identity, and then they also lose a piece of their income. And so what we decided and looked into was, well, how do we accomplish both of those? Well, your identity is tied a lot of times to 25 years or 30 years of employment. And if you leave here and then to go work, say, at Home Depot or any other extra place to subsidize your income, your identity is still lost. So how do we keep that employee who's been here and also keep their, if you will, their income at a certain level? So what we do is we tell the person that if you, or whatever your hourly rate is today that you're making working for the sheriff's office, we will assure you we'll pay you that hourly rate to return. Now, there are some positions, such as management level positions, that you may not be able to perform when you return, but the hourly rate for that person is what they walk out of here making. I'll give you a good example. One of our directors of our warrant division for years left and retired after 40 years of working here. Took the STEP program, came back. He is one of our lead chaplains. He works 19 hours a week, comes in and out of the institutions, and forever he was managing a part of our warrant division and does an incredible job, really in a more inspired job, if you will, today for a 19-hour a week salary. The thing that people realize, I think, is that their pension obviously picks up their health care and it picks up their pension amount, and then we supplement that with 19 hours. And what ends up happening is the person is working 19 hours virtually for the same salary they've always made, and they've earned the pension, and so they can go in and start to do that. We have a wide variety of people working, nearly 35 of them, in all sorts of work. Our commitment is we will not degrade you or send you to another shift that you're working on when you take the STEP program. We will try to match it up with what you've been trained to do and what you're doing today, and that's worked the entire time. And so I promise you this is true. We do surveys of those people. It is a home run hit by every one of them. We did a lot of calculations as to a person who has 30 years of service here is really not working much more than 19 hours a week anyway, but because their earning power is so high that they're building vacation and so forth. And so what this does is allow them to take 19 hours a week regular hours, and they're not earning any more vacation time, but their pension's paying for all of that. So it's an incredible, it really is. The morale of that person is dramatically different. They come to work every day with, I think, a more inspired approach. Their identity is still here. Their income is still here. And just to give you an example, when the buyout was done by Metro, we are half the size of the police department. So you would take that you would think we would be half as many people in programs like this. They had 76, 77 people take the buyout in the police department. We had 9. And the 9, you would think we'd have 35 or 36. Those are all on the STEP program. And we see it as a savings, and I think the buyout's a good thing for certain people who want to do that. But our program really accomplishes a very similar thing and saves us a lot of money annually out of our budget. So it's been a huge hit for us. We did a lot of work on the front end, and what we realized was that people were afraid to take that leap after having put in 25 or 30 years in an agency and have to take somewhat of a cut because of just the pension amount. So it's been a huge hit for us, and I told our staff that budgetarily it's a win-win. The morale of the employees is a huge benefit, and we get the.
And you get all the knowledge.
Yeah.
to retain that. That's
I mean,
good.
I can't tell you how many times they've said, just put me anywhere. I did that 10 years ago. Let me do that job today. I'll go back and help, advise in certain divisions. So, yeah, we don't lose their institutional knowledge, and they don't lose their identity, and quite frankly, we all win. I think it's been a really good program.
Good. And the mobile unit, I know we talked about it last year. That's the unit that's being developed now. But where the current one, where is that assigned?
Yeah, what we do is we went out to the commanders in the police department and said, look, at the time it was Chief Kelton, of course, she's gone, but we went to her and said, help us navigate through which commander you want us to be with as a sheriff's office. And what happens is we end up really sitting between, let's say, South and Hermitage, out there in the Metro Southeast area, which splits those zones. And what it allows us to do is get it affixed somewhere in that area, and then all of the officers in both Hermitage and South go to that location if we're there, or North, and let's say if we're in the North Nashville area, we're trying to get closer to the two different police precincts versus just one. It's been kind of interesting. The commanders in the police department kind of lobby for it on a regular daily basis because it really shuts down or reduces their downtime. And I'll just give you a quick story. When we tried this, I went to the police department and said, look, this unit's not going to be successful unless you push your employees to it. If you push your employees and ask of them to go there when they make an arrest, I promise you they will want to go back, but you need to help me require them. Chief Anderson, all the command staff heavily encouraged the officers to use it. You don't have to do that anymore. The officers appreciate the fact they're down 23 minutes and right back to work. It's been a huge hit. When I came to you guys a few months back and said, I believe it's time to do another one, it was based on that reputation of the police officers. What we envision happening now is taking that same type of approach on the other side of town and really doing the same thing night by night on the high areas, of course, on nights like New Year's Eve, St. Patrick's Day, the SEC tournaments. We're actually going to the police saying, where do you want us? And that relationship at that level is, it's fantastic.
It fits in certainly with the growth of special events and everything else. Good. Okay. Rich, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Right.
Just one quick question, Darren. I know there have been some contractual increases and sort of responsibilities and things that you do and take responsibility for. Can you walk us through those quickly?
Yeah.
One of them in particular is pretty significant.
Yeah, one is a big one that was just awarded, the security contract for Metro government. Obviously, we oversee a large portion of that, and that's really built into that contract, the amount of that. But it was just awarded, so there's an amount in our modification that specifies just that one contract. But one that really concerns me is over the last 4 or 5 years, as our numbers have gone down, inmate numbers in our budget, one of the things that probably hasn't appeared is increases in contracts like food service. The inmate
Just normal
food.
escalators.
Right, normal escalator built
contract.
into the contract, but what we haven't done in the years past is ask for that escalator at all because we're trying to reduce budgets and trying to get, but we're beyond that ability to do that. A contract like food, I think it's about an $80,000 increase this coming year, the escalator that's built into the contract. Regardless of how many meals you serve, there's an escalator built in with a CPI on that contract that we have to pay the vendor. But in years past, when we were going through reductions, we've tried to swallow that escalator in our cut. And we're to a point where that's no longer able to be done. And so as we move forward, and maybe it's a good thing, but as we move forward, we're going to have to just look and watch those contracts to make sure that we have the money built into the budget to improve whatever the requirement is. And again, as you guys know, we're often driven by our inmate population, and I'm assuming that is going to incrementally go up like the projections show. But yeah, we've had that, and of course supplies for inmates, clothing, bedding, mattresses, shoes, all the stuff that we buy. They also have smaller types of amounts, but built into the contract. So we haven't asked for those in the past because we've tried to gobble up, if you will, in our cut some portion of that.
Okay. Well, good job. I mean, I know you and I have worked on these issues for a quarter of a century, so so I know you're doing an excellent job, and I appreciate what all the men and the women in the Sheriff's Department do. It's they deserve a lot of credit for their professionalism and the way they perform their tasks. So we have this one outstanding bit of information we're going to get, and then I think that's a wonderful idea, and I thank you for coming up with that. And we'll look forward to receiving that, and then we'll move forward from there. But keep up the good work, and I certainly appreciate what you've done and what you continue to do.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.